Please welcome to the stage Bloomberg Television's Tom McKenzie.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited about today's event. So we really appreciate you coming here, of course, to our London European headquarters and, of course, virtually as well, joining us for this segment. I'm Tom McKenzie. My name is Tom McKenzie. I co-anchor the Markets Today show on Bloomberg Television. And I'm very excited to be hosting the event today. The focus and the way that we titled this talk and these series of discussions is Intelligent Automation Transformation in a Time of Uncertainty. That uncertainty, whether it is higher interest rates, whether it's inflation, whether it's these trade frictions, whether it's war, decoupling, all of these issues front and center for many executives and businesses. So the priority in terms of how to adjust, how to reduce costs and push through those cost savings whilst also creating greater efficiencies. That is a priority for many an executive, many a board member as well. So that is part of the focus of the discussion. We recently held a poll, by the way, just to give some insight on social media. Almost half of respondents said return on investment, so ROI, is the top metric that management uses to greenlight projects. Maybe not such a surprise, but again, with that focus on creating efficiencies in this environment of higher costs. And today we're going to discuss how organizations can reduce those economic pressures using intelligent automation to improve efficiency while also increasing stakeholder value. We're going to take a look as well at how AI is changing the world at breakneck speed and what it takes to implement a successful AI strategy. Just the last few minutes, President Biden has been talking about this, by the way, at the United Nations General Assembly, talking about the potential but also the perils of artificial intelligence. We also did a poll, part of the poll that I mentioned before, which also mentioned and looked at the fact that amongst respondents, fewer than half of those who responded said that their company embraces and has a culture that actually embraces new technology. Fewer than half has that culture. Kind of remarkable in today's world. So we're going to also discuss how to build support amongst your employee base in terms of embracing those automation projects and embedding them into the organization, from senior leadership all the way down to employees at all levels. Before we get started, though, a few housekeeping rules, as we must. For our virtual attendees, if you do experience any issues in terms of connectivity, then as any good IT specialist would say, just turn it off and turn it on again. Or just refresh your browser. We've also got a chat box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen for support as well, so you can access that. For real-time transcription of the event might be helpful. Click the link in the session description. There is a Wordly page and follow along, so you'll get the transcription as well. We would love to hear your thoughts throughout the program. To submit questions virtually, you can click on the white tab on the right side of the video window. And for those of you here in the room, you can submit questions by scanning the QR code up here on the screen, send them in to us, and we can put those to the panelists as well. And you can also engage with us, of course, on social media using the hashtag Intelligent Automation. Okay, I would also like to acknowledge, of course, our sponsor, our generous sponsor, IBM, for making this conversation possible. And with that, please welcome to the stage Emmanuel Trenny, Vice President for Automation EMEA at IBM.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to see us today. So it's the second year we're running this Intelligent Automation series with Bloomberg. This year, the topic, transformation in a time of uncertainty. We've got a great lineup of speakers today. We're going to have plenty of time to discuss together. So I'm sure that you will get a lot of value out of the time you are investing with us today. So thank you again very much for spending the afternoon with us. So time of uncertainty, what are we talking about? We're talking about skills shortage, right? We're talking about inflation. We're talking about customer engagement models that are changing. We're talking about supply chain disruption, geopolitical instability. Shall I mention climate change and the impact it has? So, and I can go on with the litany of changes. But there is one technology that can help alleviating some of these issues, or most of these issues, which is AI automation. When we are talking to our clients, we figured that those who have already embraced AI automation, they are already getting the rewards of for their investment. We are surveying every year hundreds of CEOs across the globe, and the results of that survey show that those who have embraced AI automation, they are growing their top line twice as fast as their competitor do, which is pretty big. So what are they doing? Well, firstly, they are working on customer satisfaction and client engagement. Okay? There are many, many ways to do that with AI automation, as you can imagine. But just one item that I want to point out is the digital employee. Okay? Digital employee is the big bad term when you talk about automation because people think about jobs disappearing. And of course, there will be some of that. But much more importantly, at least to us, digital employee is about augmenting the capabilities of the employee and the workforce, making sure that they can deliver a better service and a much more informed decision that they can make using AI. The second thing that our clients are doing is they are working on the effectiveness of their processes. And that's where process mining is king. The first thing when you are working with processes is to make sure that you have a full understanding of your process and you make sure that you have unanimity of the understanding of that process. And if any of you tried with all these post-its in the past, you know how difficult that can be. With process mining, no question, this is being done by the machine. But the better things with process mining is that it can help you improving those processes and optimizing them and making sure they are more efficient. You can run simulations of what you want to do and to see the differences between the future state of the process and what you have right now. The third thing that our clients are doing is working on costs. Working on business processes, for instance, is a way to reduce costs and making sure they are better. But one item that I want to point out here is the fact that all the transformation that we've been talking about so far is also made possible because of the cloud and because of the hybrid cloud that we are living in, the world that we're living in. And with hybrid cloud becomes a very challenging question for organizations, which is the control of the spend that they're putting on cloud. And to that, there is a kind of discipline that is helping a lot, which is FinOps. FinOps will help clients, or businesses, to better control their cloud spend, but it's going to help them to do that without compromising the application performance and the outcome they want, which is very important. So I will just not leave you without just a word on generative AI, because I have to? No, because it's definitely something that is just changing the whole, perimeter or world we're in. Automation accelerated a lot when we started to include AI. Now with generative AI, it's going to get even faster. With IBM, we have released Watson X, which is the work that we've been doing with generative AI. And we see already use cases coming out. The first one around the digital worker, and we have issued a solution called Watson Orchestrate, which allows us to help HR teams to identify skills and recruit candidates and be much faster identifying those skills, those people, and to onboard them. The second one is about IT remediation, where we are using application observability, we are using AIOps and generative AI in order to reduce the time it takes to fix an IT issue you may have on your application or your network. And generative AI is playing a big part in that. So you see, automation, IE automation is a huge accelerator to solve all these issues that we have because of the uncertainty we have these days. And generative AI will help us to accelerate even more. So that's it for my few words. I'm very much looking forward to interact with you further. But Tom, back to you. Thank you very
much. Emmanuel, thank you very much indeed. A really nice setup there. I think if we reflect back towards the end of last year, that was the real wake-up call. You talked about generative AI, ChatGPT from OpenAI being launched. AI is not new, obviously, but it's generative AI, it's large language models, and it was the public-facing nature of what OpenAI did with ChatGPT that really caught so many people's attention and led to this rethink about how to adopt it into our daily lives and, of course, corporations as well. Now, I gave a shout out to President Biden, who was speaking at the United Nations earlier, but we also, Bloomberg just been speaking the last hour or so to Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister, of course, and he actually told us in the last hour that if he was in government right now, he would be reforming the entire government agenda around artificial intelligence. And this is a former Prime Minister, whatever you think of him, who has been thinking quite deeply about technology and AI in the last few years. So I thought that was consequential. So we have some panelists who are going to do a deep dive for us, some real experts in terms of how you question, how you think about the challenges, the solutions that you're looking to fulfill, and the solutions that you look then to add around AI, how you implement them across your organization, the opportunities, but of course, how to mitigate some of the pitfalls as well. So I'm very pleased to say, as part of this discussion, we have Amy Challen from Shell, who leads up artificial intelligence for Shell. So let's welcome Amy onto the stage, please. Globally, by the way, heading up AI for Shell. Tony Coleman from Temenos, which is the banking financial services software company. Really consequential as well in terms of providing solutions for financial services and banks, and in terms of the solutions that they offer to their customers. So Tony, please come onto the stage as well. And finally, but certainly not least, Alex Harvey from Ocado, who oversees robotic development, the hardware side, but no doubt has significant views as well on how the software interacts with the hardware, and of course a business that is providing platforms for grocers and retailers globally with a footprint in the US as well. So, Alex, come onto the stage as well, please. Welcome. And thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
So I think the first question is how you identify, and there's a lot of different angles we take on this, but how you identify the need when it comes to potential AI solutions. Amy, I want to start with you, Amy, because I know you, obviously at Shell, have had AI as part of the working process, creating efficiencies, a number of different use cases. You're using it to kind of transcend as well, or at least do the transformation away from some of the carbon parts of the business towards that green evolution, and you see that as consequential. How do you assess what the needs are, and then isolate and focus on the potential solutions before we get onto the question of how you incorporate that? How do you zero in on where the needs are across the business?
I think it's like with any improvement initiative, you're going to have a lot of different ways you look for ideas, and you can do them top down. You can do benchmarking. You can say, where have you got high areas of cost? What's your intuition? What did you learn in your last business? And you can do it bottom up as well, where you ask the machine operator, how is this process stupid? How could you do better? Also, you look for any kind of very manual process or something which is very tricky or often goes wrong. I think the trouble is there's opportunity everywhere. The only difference is how much value it is. So once you've got your kind of long list of ideas or areas you think you could look at, it's then a question of your standard 2x2 matrix of feasibility, how easy is it versus value. And that's the piece we use to from the beginning say, do we think this is worth looking at? And then as we go through, as we learn more about the problem, you often find actually it's harder than you thought, or it's easier than you thought, or the value isn't there for some reason. And then you adjust. But basically it's the usual. I don't actually think it's that different from any other lever you can pull in business in terms of process redesign and the rest of it. Because it's not just about efficiency. Often it's a quality thing as well. If you want to improve customer service, you don't just want to talk to more customers in an hour and treat more of them. You also want to provide a better service, make sure you answer their query quickly. But fairly standard.
Is it a harder sell to the board because of some of the unknowns around at least the new generative parts of AI?
The generative AI.
Or do you get it across the board as easily as you would any other potential?
It's an interesting one, because I think with AI, and particularly generative AI, you have your usual problem with AI, which is on the one hand, people think it's magic.
Yeah.
Magic is an easy sell. On the other hand, you have to deliver to magic, and that's not easy. So it's always this mix of you have to do a certain amount of marketing, you have to tell people what we can do genuinely. If you haven't seen it before, this is the amazing stuff we can do, but also set expectations that this isn't magic, it's hard work, it often fails, it requires just as much process change, change management, impact from the business as anything else. And that's a very balanced message. But I've certainly found with our leadership, there's a lot of receptivity, and there's a lot of excitement at the moment.
Tony, let's bring you in at this point. Cloud services, the cloud essential to what you do, and Temenos recently launching an AI-powered product as well for transactions, so to make it easier for your clients, financial services and banking clients, to be able to kind of put out, at least monitor and give detailed information on transactions for their clients and their customers as well. How do you identify the need? How have you been thinking about this and some of the potential pitfalls and opportunities around how to implement?
Yeah, I think to build on what Amy was saying, it's a lever, right? And we were joking just before in the over coffee that the answer is generative AI. Now, what's your problem?
Yeah.
And that's a pitfall. So we're at Temenos, we're a big fan of appropriate use of technology, and that can be the pragmatic stuff. A lot of it, again, building what Amy was saying, is around not only the AI elements, the culture, and the organization as well. You are changing people's jobs. That's part of what we're doing, and hopefully for the better. And so when you look at things like, transaction classification is not new. We've been doing it for years and years, based off, originally rules, then traditional AI, if I can say that, at this point, and then moving into explainable AI, and now generative AI. So it's layering on these tools and techniques, coupling it with the culture change and the underlying organization change that you need as well.
Does that ring true with you, Alex, at Ocado?
Absolutely. At Ocado, we really first look at the business end to end, understand the operating costs of our retail partners. So Ocado, we are no longer Ocado Retail. We own 50% of Ocado Retail along with M&S. Ocado's business today is in providing an end-to-end e-com grocery logistics platform for international retailers the world over, so Kroger, Coles, Aeon, to name just a few. And teams that work for me and across Ocado Technology, we focus really on understanding the customer's business model. And so, last mile logistics is a very significant proportion of sales in terms of the cost, as is operating the warehousing, the logistics. And so that's where we really focus an awful lot of our innovation is in these two areas of very high cost for retailers to operate a logistics platform. But we need to have machine learning and AI pervasive through the end-to-end capability in order to be able to realize those sort of incremental gains that really lead to fundamentally either having a profitable business or not because of how thin the margins are in grocery. And so interaction from the web shop through to the warehouse, supply chain, routing systems, all the way to last mile grocery logistics, the delivery, have to be very tightly coupled together. And insights from one have to be fed through. And so, customer shopping habits influence how we design warehouses. And then all the way through into using AI to do things like picking and packing, which is what my teams do at the moment. All the retailers around the world range different items. In the UK, they range 70,000 different types of items. And so the diversity and complexity is huge. There's no way you can build systems using traditional technologies and heuristics. One really has to embrace systems that learn from data, such as AI, and doing that by really focusing the investment where it generates that return.
How do you decide whether to build in-house or to buy in or pull in third parties?
So Ocado, in effect, is monetizing its intellectual property. And so we have to be very careful about how we use third-party technology in the way that it's licensed. But we leverage an awful lot of common AI technology and tooling, such as TensorFlow. A few years ago, we were working on a project to predict the failures in some of our pieces of actual automation, physical automation. Mike came back from aerospace a few years ago. And so we leveraged something called Google WaveNet, which was a machine learning capability developed by Google for time domain signals. It was traditionally developed for speech recognition, but you are able to adapt this technology for learning any time domain signal. And then, if you are in the process of physical automation, motors, sensors, these all generate time domain data streams. And so we leverage things like WaveNet. And then we build our own. The latest control system that we have leverages a different type of generative AI, not language models, but actually it's called behavior cloning, where we use the cognitive ability of humans to effectively remote control the robots to start with. We then use that data to train the AI, and it is end-to-end, right? So video comes in, robot control comes back out, and the ability of these systems to generate, to generalize across problems they haven't seen is phenomenal. I mean, it truly blows my mind in terms of the capability.
So there's the human training element, and then the human steps back, and they're able to continue those functions.
But AI isn't perfect. AI goes wrong. And so how we leverage humans and AI working collaboratively together. If the robot, for whatever reason, is unable to complete a pick, maybe it drops an item. The packaging has changed, the packaging has been damaged or something, then we're able to use remote operators to effectively collaborate with the AI to help complete the task. So it performs operational recovery in order to maintain that kind of very reliable service that we need 24/7, picking millions of items a day. And then we can use the data from a failed pick that has been recovered by this remote pilot to go and improve the AI over time. And so having a strategy where you build technology, but for us, this remote operation stuff, it helps us build the ML at the beginning. It helps us operate it in terms of the real world operational challenges. And then it also helps us kind of build further improvements. And so you're kind of generating inertia in this flywheel that gets faster and faster and faster.
There's a combination then of in-house solutions and third-party when it comes to you. What about at Shell, Amy? How do you think about whether to build it out in-house? Do you have the resources? Do you have the team? And you've got your cash-rich company. Do you do it in-house or do you pull in third parties?
I think similar to Alex, I don't think anyone could say they're building everything in-house nowadays because your component parts, the component parts you get from outside are just so good now. You'd be crazy to try and do it on an island. But I mean, we always think in terms of, is it our core IP? What are we? We produce energy, we process it, we distribute it, and we trade it. That's core to what we do. And if it's something outside of that, which isn't completely easy or obvious or something like that, then we should use market standard. And if it's something within that, then we might want to look carefully at whether it's our core IP and therefore we want to keep it. I think build versus buy is a bit simple though, because there's plenty of things like partner or build on something that's actually third party. And obviously we use cloud platforms like everyone else. We're not going to try and use our component parts. So actually it's always a patchwork of taking what you have from the market, building on what you need internally, and just being really clear about how best to use your time and resources.
How do you find, are there frictions when it comes, you think of an oil company or an energy company like Shell, and you think of engineers out there on rigs. You have those engineers, but you also have your software engineers building out some of these AI solutions. How do you meld the two? Is there a friction there? How do you get past that?
That's a different type of friction. I mean, I don't see that so much with the front line necessarily. I mean, that's always a change management question that when any population, whatever it is, whether it's call centre workers or people on an oil rig, it's always going to be some people think, brilliant, let's try something new. Let's see how we can do this differently. Some people are like, I don't know, it's worked so fine so far for 25 years, why change it? And other people are kind of, could go either way. So it's always an effort to really do the change management, make sure everyone's bought in, make sure it's explained properly, make sure it is to everyone's benefit as well. Of course, people don't want to adopt things which they're not sure about. But I mean, that's a very different type of tension, I think. And that's one which, again, is no different from any other process change, any other change to a business that you'll have.
Tony, is it easier for you because you're a pure software play? Maybe you don't have those same, I mean, you're smiling at this, so maybe those tensions exist. How do you implement, once you've decided, you've selected what the problem is, you've chosen whether you're going to do it in-house or pull in a third party, make an acquisition, you found out what the problem you're trying to tackle is, and then you have a team tackle it with that particular solution. How do you embed that then into the business and mitigate the downside risks?
So I think you've been reading some of our blog posts because the keyword there is embed, right? So yes, much, and again, to not necessarily just say yes, us as well, but yeah, we take a mixed approach. We're not going to build out the nuts and bolts. There's a great deal of open source out there that we want to use, and again, partnering is another angle. But then, pulling it all together is where it starts to the magic happens, as it were. So, in terms of what we try to do, and we try to encourage our clients, the banks, to do as well, is not sort of put AI over there in a corner. We want all of our product managers, all of our product teams, all of our engineering teams to be able to use this platform capability, which, we may well change over time, and that's fine. That's why we put a platform over the top of it, so that they can then build our core IP, banking IP, over the top of those models, over the top of those capabilities, regardless of what the underlying AI tech is. So it's about exactly that, embedding it into the teams, embedding it into the products. That's how we've seen a lot of our customers be successful, and that's how we're rolling out our AI-powered products as well.
A lot of this innovation is obviously happening far ahead and moving far more quickly than the regulators are, and you work obviously in a very regulated space. So how do you keep ahead of your competitors whilst also ensuring that you don't fall foul of regulators?
So one of the things that we talk about a lot is this concept of responsible AI. And previously we talked about explainable AI and ethical AI. So we kind of roll it all together into this concept of responsible AI. And again, we were talking at the break about how we can see legislation coming down the track. We know it's coming, but moreover, it's a duty of care, if you will, so that if somebody has a loan application rejected, they need to understand why. You can't be using black box models that just, computer says no. You need to understand why. You need to be able to challenge that. And you need to provide evidence that if it is behavior-based, so again, at the break we were talking about the idea that perhaps as an SME, as a leader in a small company, you may not get a loan because your cholesterol is high. But unless you know that's what the problem is, then you don't have a way of fixing it and you don't have a way of challenging it. So yes, there's all this regulation coming down the track. Keeping an eye on it, looking to the wider industry, obviously, but also a lot of that regulation, hopefully, maybe this is a little optimistic, is there to protect the consumers and ourselves. So really, come back to do what's good, what's correct, is the North Star, if you will.
Okay, so the importance of explainable models versus maybe some of the black box.
Absolutely.
So maybe a bit of a critique of ChatGPT and OpenAI on that level. Well, there's a question actually from the audience around what your use is of OpenAI, so I'll get to that very shortly. But Alex, on the question of regulation, on the question of data, obviously your clients are customer facing. I may not want your clients to know that on a Friday I buy 10 tubs of ice cream and a bottle of whiskey. So how do you think about data and abuses of data and how to ring fence that so that you don't lose that client trust?
So again, we have a responsible AI policy that is being heavily influenced. No, we do. We're compliant, we track the data, and we ensure the lack of biases. Fundamentally, in terms of your question, how do we ensure that kind of confidence from our retail partners? We don't track individual people, basically, right? They hold all of that data in their own systems, and what we get is effectively tokenized and anonymized data, so that we can use that to improve the systems without having any access to any individual customer.
So do you use, on this question that's come through from one of our viewers or someone in the room, OpenAI, do you use it in your systems?
Not within our systems. At the moment, the free to use ChatGPT, everything that you put into it is public domain. And so we are being very careful about how we do use it. However, our teams of engineers do leverage it as part of supporting them doing their work. I have a team of engineers 3D printing a robot arm. And actually, we were exploring different permutations of which print technology in order to drive cost and the right kind of mechanical performance. And so we leveraged ChatGPT to explore different permutations with different types of print technology by posing it a series of questions. It came back with the answers in a split second. We validated a number of them for accuracy. They were 100% accurate, and then we just believed the rest, I'm afraid. So as a support tool, if you understand how to write the right query, it is incredibly powerful.
Next time, bring the arm in with you.
I will happily do that.
Okay, so use ChatGPT for the hallucinations, you stress test for some of those. Amy, you've allowed ChatGPT 4 to be used at Shell.
Not me personally, but yeah.
Okay. Some institutions, some banks, for example.
Yeah, no, we certainly are using, we haven't actually blocked public ChatGPT yet. We've trained people, but we haven't blocked that. But more importantly, we are using the APIs via Microsoft on OpenAI, on ChatGPT, to create services in Shell and to run a series. We've got a whole program using that and other generative AI models, both in vision and text, to explore what we can do around the business to improve efficiency, for sure, but also look at quality and other impacts. So we do have a large generative AI program now.
Okay. Another question coming through from the audience. Where do you see the trend of automation going, especially when we're influenced by chip shortages and AI enthusiasm? Tony, let's put that question to you. NVIDIA was very much in the headline the last few weeks. Some of their most high-end chips cost about $20,000, $30,000 US. We have a shortage of them here in the UK. What is your take on that question?
So, to an extent, the answer's cloud. Now, at the risk of coming back to the answer's cloud. Now, what's your problem? The ability to put a pragmatic use of technology, putting the right workloads on the most efficient chips. Cloud gives you that ability. Most banks, typically, for historic reasons, will have an amount of tin that they can reuse. It's unlikely they've got vast amounts of GPUs or AI-friendly kit lying around. So, in 2023, do you want to be building that? Now, there's my friends at IBM. We've had a few discussions on this and the idea of a hybrid cloud, where some of our customers, some of our banks, need to keep this data on-prem, or want to for whatever reasons. Then there's a different set of chip technology that they can bring to bear there. So cloud, but hybrid. A combination of those two, again, appropriate technology for the right use case.
Alex, you project out 5 years. Where do you see automation taking us as we weigh up these two, it seems, conflicting pressures, the shortage of chips and this hype and enthusiasm around AI?
In the space that we operate, I see it becoming ever more efficient, our operation. For the retailers that we support, fundamentally, and without getting to a different challenging question about AI and jobs, the main direct costs that our retailers faced is fairly low-skill labour roles, whether they are picking and packing in a warehouse or doing other types of handling.
They're all out of jobs, aren't they?
I'm afraid. I kind of think that at some point in the event horizon they are. Moving in uncertain environments, if you're on a road, is much more complicated than handling things in a warehouse, which is where we are focusing at the moment. When it comes to the challenge and constraints of chip availability, actually, at Ocado, years ago, we encountered our threshold of how much spend we are willing to make in terms of cost for cloud costs. And so today, we are very conscious when we build new systems about the amount of logging that we're creating, the amount of data that we're storing, our ability to generate data versus the utility we get from that data. It far exceeds the potential benefits. And so actually having a very strong focus on how you maximize your utility from data, which therefore ultimately ends up meaning we have to be quite efficient with the hardware that we're using. When we deploy robots, the robots need to be for a certain price point, and so I'm afraid we can't deploy them with just like tens of GPUs. And so actually we have to find ways of deploying very advanced physical automation systems and also software-based automation systems that don't just consume all the compute that you can throw at it. So actually being very efficient with data, and then, which means being efficient with compute at the same time, is key.
Amy, how much free rein do you have to spend on compute? Are you concerned that the lack of compute, the shortage of chips, the cost could hold back some of these innovations?
Yes. I think the supply chains currently are very fragile, and there are efforts being made to make them more robust with government support in various countries. That will take some time to flow through. So I think the combination of the absolute hype and the fragile supply chain could lead to a bit of a crunch. Whether that's actually going to impact everyday operations, I'm not sure, because these things take time to develop and really put into practice anyway, but that definitely is a concern.
There's another question coming in about quantum computing and the impact on the pace in terms of how quantum computing may speed up the implementation of AI. Anyone kind of jumping out with a strong view on that?
I think it will take some time.
It'll take some time.
Yeah.
Still a ways off.
We have researchers dabbling occasionally. There's a problem called the knapsack problem, which is a very classic optimization problem. It looks not that dissimilar to a cubing problem that we have, where we theoretically tessellate all of the potential groceries into our shopping baskets. As you are clicking add to basket, we are doing that tessellation live so that we can maximize the efficiency of the traveling salesman problem, that is the last mile grocery logistics. And at the point that we've tried to formulate this problem into a quantum problem, the number of qubits we need is in the millions. And at the moment, D-Wave machines are in the thousands, and maybe there's some governments out there with machines which are far more powerful. But for me, when we've dabbled in it, it looks very distant at the moment.
Not yet, for sure.
Not yet. We're talking timeframes of years, decades?
I'm happy to, depending on who you talk to, quantum computing is tomorrow or 300 years away.
Right.
So somewhere between.
Somewhere between there. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you very much all for those insights. I think broadly cautiously optimistic about the prospects and the upside that come through from AI, with some really good insights into how to mitigate some of the risks and of course the potential challenge around supply chains and all that focus on compute. So thank you very much indeed for all of that. Amy Challen, Global Head of Artificial Intelligence at Shell, Tony Coleman, Chief Tech and Innovation Officer at Temenos, and Alex Harvey, of course, from Ocado, Chief of Advanced Technology. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ebru Bimboga. I'm leading IBM's data, AI, and automation businesses. And today, here I am with Kristen. Kristen,
Thanks,
would you mind
Ebru. Yes.
introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Benny. I'm a designer and an innovator. I was formerly the head of innovation and partnerships at NatWest, and I now have my own consultancy advising enterprises on how to adopt AI.
Thank you, Kristen, for joining me today. And it's great to have you here. I know that both AI and automation are topics very close to your heart and your experience. So I would suggest to dive straight in.
Okay, sounds good.
Good. Then let me start with my questions to you. So you have driven so many successful AI-driven automation projects, which is not common in the market. Well done on that, first of all. When it comes to digital labor solutions, how do you turn all of that conversation? How do you go beyond the conversation and make it reality to help the employees?
Yeah, it's a great question. We could probably spend the rest of the session talking about that. Let me give you a little context, and then I can try to answer the broader question around how you go from conversation, ideation, and a bit of hype and enthusiasm to actual impact for your customers. Let me use a NatWest example. There's two digital labor examples that I can share. Might be interesting for all of you in the audience. The first one is an enterprise AI-enabled solution that we implemented for all of our colleagues across NatWest. And that was in partnership with IBM Watson. And that looked to really help all of our colleagues sort of do their best work in that provided help and support and exceptional colleague support across any technology query, any HR query, any procurement query. Your printer, default goes away. What do? You ask Archie. So the service was called Ask Archie. We rolled it out, and it's now the de facto go-to place for colleagues to get help and support. And actually, we found by doing that, people could then put the focus into their day-to-day work and not have to worry so much about these other queries that they needed help with. The other example, which also was in partnership with IBM Watson, it's quite a different example, but I still think it speaks to the digital labor question. And that was around an AI application we implemented across our mortgages business. So you can imagine mortgages are complex. It's a lengthy process. You have changing pricing, changing regulation. There's a lot happening. It's a dynamic environment. And for us, when I was at NatWest, it was really important that we gave our staff in the mortgage and processing centers, all the support they needed to be and do their best work. So we implemented sort of I would term it a similar thing to a co-pilot solution for the staff in the processing center to help them with any queries they needed as part of a process re-engineering exercise. So those are two really interesting examples. Happy to talk more about them after in the networking at the end. I think also, Ebru, back to your question around how you go from the conversation through to impact. I think in my experience, I focus on three things, kind of 3 C's is what I call them. So one is making sure you have the right commitment and sponsorship within the organization. At NatWest, we were fortunate we had it kind of top down from the CEO. I think secondly, there's questions around capability and how you skill, reskill, upskill, partner for skills. And then the third one I would say, and it was mentioned in the earlier panel, is around that change model and that blueprint for change, particularly on the cultural side. How do you create a culture that embraces AI technologies in the enterprise?
Great examples. In fact, it is really impressive to hear about the two areas, how you empower the employees and also how you improve the customer care with the second project. But we know that you have created an AI family at NatWest. There are more projects.
There are more projects. There are a few more projects. Those are just two siblings. There are other instances, but I guess if you think about the concept of a family, if you think of it maybe more as an architecture, Ebru, of solutions. So as well as enabling the kind of digital labor workforce and the colleagues, we also focused on our external customer base, and we offered we tried, and the goal was to offer exceptional kind of customer service and support to all of our retail customers and commercial customers, and we did that over time. We started small. It was a multi-year journey, but I think today the service is serving around 1.5 million conversations every month, supporting our customers. And over time, I think what was really fun and interesting and also challenging was layering in the automated tasks and the automated processing into those conversations.
Impressive, but also very innovative. So while driving this innovation, how do you create trust with the customers? The reason why I want to ask this now is you heard in the previous panel, right? Everyone talks about trust and responsible AI. So today it is crystal clear that there's a huge hype around AI, around generative AI.
Yes.
I had to use that word. And what we observe in the market is that when companies are willing to start the AI projects, the biggest showstopper or the first question mark is in their mind around governance and bias and ethics. How did you handle that?
Yes, carefully. No, it's a great question, Ebru. I think when you're thinking about trust, it's multifaceted, and naturally as a financial services organization, people trust us with their money, so it's paramount when we're thinking about introducing any new application or new technology. I think we've and myself approached it from a couple of different angles. One was that we developed it in close consultation with our own user group and our own colleagues, so that added an element of trust in what we were building, and we focused a lot on how we designed that interaction layer, which is now, I think, been superseded a little bit by generative AI and ChatGPT, but actually building trust all the way down through the application stack, so data security, we talked about it earlier, I think, in the previous panel, explainability is big in financial services, and the ethics and the bias, we would do that ourselves, but we also partnered with people like IBM to help us with that.
Yes, and I think the principles that IBM's AI is structured on, such as fairness, robustness, privacy, played a key role while you were delivering those projects.
Yeah, exactly. They're almost design principles, if you like, for any AI project in the enterprise.
Yes, the main milestones also. One last question then, as our time really allows us to have a little bit more chat on this.
Okay.
What excites you most about the future of AI?
That's a very hard question. What excites me the most? I think actually, if I think about what excites me the most, it's actually the opportunity that is in front of us right now. I think the nice thing about what we're seeing in the market and with the sophistication of the technology is it's not something we have to wait for kind of a 5-year cycle in the future. It's actually here, it's present, we can interact with it, we can shape it, we can get involved in decision making as leaders. And to me, that's a lot of responsibility, but also a real opportunity. And I would think all of you would think in a similar fashion. I read a report a couple of days ago that just came out, was looking at research around performance of employees when they augment their work with AI-enabled solutions. And the statistics, I think, are pretty significant. And I think this is part of the reason I'm really excited. So they looked at people who used AI in the workplace. The stats around productivity were double-digit improvement. The stats around the amount of work and the completion of the tasks with double-digit improvement. But most interestingly, the quality of the work produced was also significantly improved. And so I think that is really a call to action for all of us today to lean in and think about how we want to embrace this now as opposed to in the future.
Great highlights. Thank you very much, and great insights. I'm looking forward to delivering even more successful projects together with you.
Thank you, Ebru.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Malika.
I'm the Deputy Global Editor of Bloomberg Live Experiences. It's great to see a packed auditorium this afternoon, so thank you for being here. We've had some great conversations already, and over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to be speaking to my next guest about how his company is using technology to transform a patient's healthcare journey and make it more personal, more productive, and more secure. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Arun Tyagarajan from Bupa. Please. Welcome.
Thank you.
Arun, you have an excellent title for this conversation. You are Global Healthcare Transformation Director. Tell me a little bit about your role. What transformations do you oversee? What's your remit as Transformation Officer?
Sure. So I obviously work for Bupa. We're a massive international healthcare organisation undertaking lots of transformation at the moment, as many industries and organisations are. Where do I start? So we have, after the pandemic, obviously, as cliche as it sounds, undertaken a lot of different types of projects, which has been a bit of a catalyst for us. Mm-hmm. If we rewind back to 2020, the way in which our consumers and customers wanted to receive their healthcare has dramatically changed. If I give you a little example, in our Spanish business, our virtual consultations, for example, started off with about 500 or so a day pre-pandemic, and now are at 5,000. So we do, in that country alone, do 5,000. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is that people want to take and receive their healthcare in different ways. We want to meet those needs, and so the transformation projects that we oversee in the company are spreading between digital all the way through to operational, through to how we can provide that to them on a day-to-day basis.
Before we carry on, I just want to remind all of you to please send in your questions. We do want to make this session as interactive as possible, so you do have the QR code. Keep sending in your questions. So as you said, you are in the middle of a significant transformation. I think many of us know Bupa as a healthcare insurance company. What are you trying to change to? What's the goal here?
So you're right. I mean, in terms of in different countries, people know us as an insurer. But actually, what might not be known to people is that we have hospitals, healthcare clinics, remote services, lots of different types of healthcare provision as well. So actually, I would say we're a healthcare partner. That still remains, and we aim to kind of lengthen and go more extensive into that remit. And so what we're trying to do is to be a partner to an individual or a customer or a patient, or however you refer to them, all the way from when, perhaps even before they have a healthcare issue itself. So taking us all the way upstream, preventing disease, making it more personalised, more bespoke. And our transformation projects that we're undertaking are trying to make sure that people don't get ill in the first place.
How do you do that? How do you get involved with the person's healthcare journey even before they're diagnosed with something?
Yeah. So I mean, we've heard a lot about artificial intelligence today.
Yeah.
I can give you a use case in which we've started to use it, again, in our Spanish business. We actually have something called AI-powered mental health therapy now. So coupled with using wearable devices, for example, making sure that we can receive information about how patients are sleeping, how they're exercising, for example, acting in advance to predict when they might have an episode of low mood, then providing them with personalized therapy that prevents them getting into a period of unsettled mood disturbance. And that's actually now shown to reduce the need for a mental health therapist or counsellor. And obviously in a day and age where we have workforce crises in healthcare across the world, that's really, really useful.
Was it the pandemic that triggered this transformation at Bupa, or just walk us through the decision-making, why you decided to take a much broader approach?
So I think the pandemic definitely helped.
Accelerated it.
It did, yes. It changed our attitude towards risk. If you think about before, I think we were, we had a lot of governance, and rightly so. We're a healthcare organisation. We need to be trusted by our customers. But during the pandemic, when we needed to adapt to delivering our healthcare in different ways, we moved towards providing solutions that were quicker and more convenient to our customers, and that kind of thread has continued all the way through.
But wait, had you started thinking about this transformation even before?
Yeah, I think we had started thinking about it, but it had definitely augmented that transition.
So let's take a step back from Bupa for a moment and just look at the wider healthcare industry. Of course, the pandemic played a huge part in the healthcare industry. I mean, we pretty much saw traditional healthcare models being turned upside down. At this point, what would you say the biggest challenge the healthcare industry faces?
So lots of challenges. If I give you a couple that come to the top of my head, I think we've got an aging population, and that's kind of virtuous of the fact that healthcare is improving. So we've got a lot of people getting older with chronic, complex conditions that need managing. And again, I think that's why it's so important to move healthcare upstream into a preventative fashion to prevent more chronic disease coming to the fore. So that's one thing. I think another challenge is that the way in which people want to receive it, like I said earlier, has changed. If you look at all other industries, look at media, look at finance, and we heard that earlier, people want to use apps, people want to get that information asynchronously, and I think healthcare has been a bit of a laggard industry in that respect. So that's the second thing. And I think that people want it personalised to them. And so that's the third challenge, I think, again, mirroring other organisations and industries that are kind of healthcare's a couple of years behind in that.
Speaking of personalized services, there's a great question from the audience. Is Bupa using AI to improve patient experience in any way?
Yeah. So we use the early stages of using AI in our journeys. So the one example I gave was the mental health. We also use it in physiotherapy as well, to give patients feedback about how they can improve their stretches and exercises to improve their musculoskeletal conditions, but also from a back office perspective in terms of making the process of consuming their insurance pathways better. So we're using now AI to move from unstructured to structured data to improve that pre-authorization process. So both in the healthcare that they receive, but also in the way that they receive it and the processes behind it.
One topic that's come up already a few times is the issue of using AI responsibly.
Yeah.
And of course, being in the healthcare industry, you are privy to such extremely sensitive data about a person. And with that comes a huge responsibility to keep it safe. How do you ensure that? What steps how are you using technology to make sure that a patient's data is safe?
Safe, yeah. I think we heard from Kristen earlier. It's with great care and difficulty, but as you say, healthcare data is probably the most kind of privileged data you can have, and so we, as a insurer and a provider, need to make sure that the appropriate kind of barriers for information in the right places. So we've got good governance in that respect, but additionally, making sure that the data that we do receive is used to improve the health outcome of that individual. I think when people see that happening live, they naturally trust us with that data. And so I'm glad to say that with the appropriate governance in place, we do well with that.
Trust, you just mentioned that, and that's what I was going to come to next. Yes, you can keep data safe and you can have technology to ensure that. What's really important is building trust with your clients, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, the challenge of really winning a patient's trust.
Yeah, and I think that all the way circles back to providing them to have value in our journeys that we provide. So if we can improve their health when they're sick, or even better, prevent them from getting unwell, and they see that in action, which is definitely our mission, which is to help people live longer, healthier, happier lives. If we're successful in that, and we have been, then it's a virtuous cycle. People trust us, they stay with us, and then the longer the people stay with us, the better we can help them in the long run. So that's really worked out well.
So here's something that I've been thinking about. When it comes to healthcare, yes, I want to have a healthcare provider that uses AI and technology to give me my results faster. At the same time, though quite often, I just want to see a human doctor.
Yeah.
AI can't replace that experience.
No, absolutely not, and I wouldn't want it to.
You don't want it to.
As a physician myself, that wouldn't be great, but it's absolutely not. I think artificial intelligence is there in our eyes to augment the patient journey, to augment the way in which the doctors or the clinicians provide their healthcare. If I give another example of things that we're looking at ambient artificial intelligence to see how that can increase the efficiency of a consultation. We know that our patients and customers like to converse with a physician face to face when they want to, but also they want the attention and the love and the care of that individual. And so it's important that we are able to improve efficiencies within things like consultations, so that a physician isn't diverted to, say, typing a letter or having to do administrational tasks that they don't have to do. So we really believe in individuals in our workforce operating at the top of their license, and I think there is use cases in things like technology, transformation and artificial intelligence to help that. And then subsequently the patient journey is a lot better, and then they stay happy.
Another great question that's come in. How do you balance the risks versus rewards of using automation in helping or making clinical decisions as part of a patient's journey and not just for business operations?
Yeah. So, I mean, tricky question, but so if you look at...
We have a good audience.
Yeah, so if you look at the risks that... So artificial intelligence generally, from a physician's perspective, can you be used to aid the decision making? So you can see they use it in imaging, for example, in x-rays, but it always goes through that physical check. So it can increase the efficiency, and I understand the question in terms of not just for operations, but sometimes it is dual fold. So improving the business operations does in turn improve the health outcome, because you get more time between the interaction between the customer and the patient and the physician. And I think that's always going to be a good thing.
So let's put aside a patient's journey for a moment. Talk to me about how you're using technology to transform your business internally. Are you using it anyway to streamline process, to create efficiencies within the organization? I've read about digital outside and digital on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think our focus has definitely been on the customer journey.
Yep.
But internally, we are looking at ways in which we could go through simple things first, like systems consolidation, to make sure that the data is transportable between organizations if a customer exits us or goes to another partner, if you will. So there is things that we're looking at and trying to improve that journey, which in turn helps us from an efficiency perspective internally as well. But the focus for us has definitely been on the customer journey to date.
There are so many levers you have to pull, changes you have to make within the company to, working with your physicians, for example, because everything changes. The way, the traditional way you've operated your company is changing. Another topic that just came up in the previous panel is the idea of the mindset. Is it hard to convince people to do things differently?
Yeah, I think it is all the time very difficult to change people's minds about the concepts of what they can, especially in healthcare, and doctors, again, I can say this as one, are generally very resistant to change. They think the way they've done it is always the way they should do. And I think that is changing. And I think, again, without going back to the pandemic, I think that was a catalyst for that. I remember attitudes towards virtual consulting were difficult even before, when we tried to introduce it. But when people couldn't work physically, then there was no better alternative, and then people became more accustomed to delivering healthcare virtually. So if you use that as an example, I think, yes, people are changing their minds to that. Doctors are, clinicians are, and I think that's a healthy way to look forward. But more importantly, I think it allows us to be able to provide virtual type of healthcare, whether that be through wearables or synchronous or asynchronous consultations, coupled into where the physical appointment is necessary. So it should be a fluid interchange. I don't think it can be one or the other.
Another great question. The insurance side of claims is becoming more automated. Could you walk through what your processes are used to ensure accurate claims approval and remove AI biases?
So our processes, we don't use AI to ensure whether the claim is accurate or not. what we do.
You just assume it's accurate. Yeah.
Well, there are checkpoints, yes, but we usually, we again trust us to work both ways. We do trust our customers to provide the right information. There is a heavy amount involved in that, as they do trust us with their information. So I think there's a bit of a trust exchange.
Both ways.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I can see a use case for that going forward. But generally, for us, we're focusing on the use of being able to automate the data so that we can at least action the pre-authorization a lot quicker. And that, again, improves the speed to access for someone to get healthcare. That's the way we're using it at the moment.
And there's a great part in this question about, remove AI biases. What, when you're working with all these algorithms, and especially in the healthcare industry, when you're working with people who come from such diverse backgrounds, racial groups, etc., how do you make sure that you've eliminated any bias?
So I don't think we've got there yet, is the fair answer, in terms of the fact that we haven't got. And I understand that the way that AI uses its data is based on what it already knows, and so therefore there's going to be a bias towards the information that it has and the generalizability of that. I think that's somewhere that we haven't really got that far yet. We're using it more in the therapy world, where there is no bias in terms of it's reacting to the individualized data that it has there on the spot, and then also in the processes of bringing things or claims quicker to action. So when we get there, I'll definitely consider this question and rewind back on here.
As Global Transformation Director, what are the metrics you apply when deciding, yes, I need to change this function, or yes, let's introduce this new change? What defines success for you?
So we're a very big organisation that operates in lots of different local markets. So, for example, the UK, Spain, Australia, where context changes. So rather than a very stick-like approach of this must be done here, we operate in a little bit more of a federated model where we react to customer need locally. So the KPIs around that are more around how can we improve the customer value, how can we improve the customer journey, how can we control more of the touch points so that we're doing the aforementioned and so on. And if those aren't working, then we have conversations and see how we can change those. But without getting too granular, I think that gives a good overhead view.
And I know you're right in the middle of the transformation process right now, but up until now, what's the one transformation that's been the trickiest to execute?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I would go back to people's cultural mentality towards using technology in healthcare. So
even after the pandemic,
even after that, I think it's because the bulk of our workforce are clinical, especially in the delivery. Except if you take ourselves away from the insurance businesses, and they're used to doing things the way they always have. And I think changing that cultural mindset has been a journey, and I still think that's part of it now.
I think we're going to end with a question from the audience. Is there anything you would or wouldn't like to see from the government or regulators that would help you achieve your transformation goals? So yes, what role can the government play? Can it help, or would you rather they just stayed out of it?
So I think co-creation of solutions in the AI space, and also with the regulators, because clearly there's a bit of catch-up to do from a regulation perspective. But I think working with the healthcare organisation in the ways in which it can be delivered and doing that together, coupled with the public system in a country like the UK, is crucial. I think together, if the three entities were to work together on that, I think we could very much achieve a lot of, solve a lot of problems that we have collectively.
And very quickly, if I asked you this question 5 years from now, describe Bupa.
Yeah.
How would it have changed?
I think it will have continued very much on the journey we are now, which is moving towards being a healthcare partner to an individual. It's not a funder, not a provider, but all the way through. And I think you will see us operating on different levels digitally, whether that be synchronously, asynchronously, using wearable devices to track information and provide appropriate care at the right time, having layered upon digital solutions on our virtual healthcare consultations, very much operating like other industries are in your back pockets, making sure that your clinician is with you at all times, and that you can get your claims quickly when you need to, and that you don't get disease sequelae, and we prevent you from getting chronic disease, and that's where I think we'll be.
Well, here's to a healthier future.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Harvey.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Arun Tyagarajan.
Hello, I am Amy Thompson. I'm Bloomberg's tech team leader for EMEA. And here today with me is, today we're going to talk about how to make sense of the different options around AI automation, how to make them pay. And here today with me is Thomas Duecke from BT, Mark Palmer of T-Systems, and Kathleen Peters from Experian. Generative AI has certainly been the theme of the day, and some of my colleagues have definitely set down this path. But I'd love to hear more about how you're thinking about it in your organizations. So Mark, maybe I'll start with you. So at T-Systems, for example, when you have a client come to you and say, my board has said generative AI is the future and I have to be on top of it. We've got to roll it out now. Let's put the chatbot in charge. What do you say to them? How do you ask them to think through the process of rolling something like that out?
Well, I think there are quite a few questions. That there's no doubt, as we said before, there's a big hype around generative AI today. And it's to understand really what are their reasons, what are they driving? Do they understand really the capabilities or what generative AI may be able to help them in? So it's understanding their circumstance, what their needs are, and also explaining the potential benefits, but also risks of generative AI. So it begins a work of collaboration and consultative at first before really engaging and being able to not prescribe, but to identify the right solution for them.
What are some of the main pitfalls that you're seeing with planning this out?
I think when clients approach us, they have a general idea of what of generative AI is. One of the pitfalls that we have with generative AI is its ability to, well, it's the guardrails. What are the guardrails that you can put around generative AI? This will be extremely important. It has huge benefits for some of our clients that are very large, that have amassed massive amounts of data. For various reasons, whether it's mainly internal data. Generative AI can be very powerful at summarizing that data, identifying that data, finding that data. So it really improves the efficacy of work of their employees. But it's how do you put the guardrails in place to ensure the safety? But also when they start using it, is their answers can then go into the system and also feed answers. So this can lead to the risks of false responses.
Are you happy with the guardrails that you're seeing for systems like OpenAI?
No, it's hard. I think it's a bit hard to say at this stage. Yeah. It's a bit early. Unfortunately, I hope it doesn't come to that, but it may be, the proof will be in the pudding. We'll have to see what happens. Some events may arise or may not. I think we need to be very cautious about it. We need to monitor it and see where it goes. We do the best we can. I think everybody will and is. I think one of to really benefit from it is how far do you go with the guardrails. You don't want to go too far, but you have to go far enough. Mm-hmm. And then of course there's guardrails and other issues when you go across geographies, geographic boundaries, certain regulations of certain countries, or certain policies that you have to respect. So sure. Get a little bit of flexibility there that has to come in.
And Kathleen, we talked about how you were thinking through this sort of automated process at Experian, where you've got a very data-rich business, but also very sensitive data.
That's right.
Can you tell us anything about how you've thought through that and how, where the responsible line is for AI within your business?
Sure. We're very excited about the possibilities with generative AI. And the neat thing about generative AI is that AI, artificial intelligence, as a concept and as a technology is not new. And so what's new is the generative part, which is the natural language interface with AI. And so as we thought about that, where it's more of a conversation you're having with the data and with the technology, suddenly there's this democratization of who in the organization can leverage the technology, and how can we ensure that we continue to be responsible, ethical, compliant users of the technology and protecting the data that has been such a hallmark of what we've been known for so long. So it's trying to get that balance right, but we're very excited about what the future holds in terms of the use of this tech.
So within Experian, it seems like it would make the most sense potentially to train the AI on your own proprietary data. How do you then protect your data?
Yeah, so we're looking at a lot of technologies, and there are a number of companies in this space, dozens if not hundreds of new ones in fact, who are really focused on what is the capability to ensure that the generative AI is not causing some data leakage of proprietary data, or that the process by which these large language models that the AI is built upon, that they're not memorizing the training data. So there's methods, and we're exploring a number of third-party companies as well as some in-house techniques to figure out what will be the best way to leverage our internal data as well as third-party data to create the solutions that have the most impact.
I see. And of course, with automation, you may be able to redeploy employees or even get by with fewer employees. I promise I'm not going to put you on the spot, but BT is one of the companies that made headlines recently saying that AI automation could potentially let it operate in the future with a smaller workforce. How do you at BT balance the potential to automate roles with the expertise that you're getting from humans today? Can we all just get along, or is sort of getting by with a smaller workforce kind of the point for a lot of this?
Well, so we're actually using Gen AI and using AI and what automation can do for us, and work actually with the organization together. I give you an example where we improve customer experience, focusing very much on how we better serve the customers, and where potentially call center agents, or roles for call center agents will disappear. We're investing quite a lot in retraining some of those, and we have quite some success, in actually becoming engineer and coders. Who better to code? Who actually knows what customers feel and what customers do. So it's not quite, there's significant job losses at all. And I think, if you listen to it was more around, there's something in the horizon until 2030, so that's a long way out. And there is some churn in BT, believe it or not, so that will naturally happen. But there's a lot of investment in retraining people, in actually upskilling people to the skills and the technologies of the future, particular data science, engineering, coding, and so on. But I think overall, if you look at into the 80s, when the internet started, we didn't put it back in a box. It happened. It's here, it's there. Nobody's asking today for, a business case for the internet, whatever. It's here. It's an essential commodity. We strongly believe that that AI and Gen AI will be the same in the next few years. So I think, we better be on the front foot, to Catherine's point, explore, how we make this work, and how we exploit the benefits for it, but doing very ethically. Not just from a data and data point, but also, how do we work with our colleagues? We believe it's not just something, that will help us improve, how we do things today. We need to take a step back and ask ourselves, what's a world of a customer service environment where customer service just happens? Colleague experience, you can improve the colleague experience dramatically. Nobody asks today, do you need Word or any other, similar program, it's just there. And that's what we believe, is going to happen over the next 3 years.
Now, it's an interesting point you made about retraining and finding the technical expertise. With AI, you hear about these astronomical salaries. They're compared to sort of NFL quarterbacks. Are you finding that to be a pain point, and how are you getting around sort of the high demand for people who know what they're doing with AI right now?
So, sorry, you mean like how do we go around to astronomical salaries?
Yeah.
If you hear about where they are, let me know. You know, like, but is that what you mean, or?
Yeah. How are you finding the? How are you all finding the employees with the know-how and the talent? Exactly.
Well, so first of all, there is there is more demand, than there's talent out there. So what we've recently done, not recently, it's actually now over a year old, with the creation of the digital division in BT. We've also set up a digital campus. So we're working with a lot of institutions together. We actually train and develop people, but we're also going much stronger out into the market. And if you look at, I mean, many of you that know BT, know it as a very as an institution with a lot of heritage. But I know BT, it's somebody that today attracts people that, from AWS, from Microsoft, from Google, these are people today in the digital division that lead a lot of the development that we're doing. So we're attracting a bigger talent, in those areas, particularly when it goes into AI, data and AI, platform thinking, building marketplaces, and they attract people. So we develop, and we're going to the market and getting some of the leaders that bring people with them.
And Kathleen and Mark, how are you thinking through it?
Yeah, as we think about that talent, a lot of the AI type of talent we've had for a long time inside of Experience. So we've had that core and have been working for the better part of a decade toward advanced neural networks, embedded learning, AI and machine learning. So we have that core. But then this democratization capability that comes with AI, especially the most recent generative AI, is very exciting. And so instead of limiting the power of AI just to the data science teams and the analytics teams, there's an opportunity for all of us to see some benefit, some productivity that's going to help us do our jobs faster and perhaps with better quality in some cases, and in a way that frees up time from some of the maybe mundane tasks to those which allow us to do more creative problem solving or do more collaboration, I think, as Mark mentioned as well, so that we have the time to do that with a lot more at our fingertips that would have maybe taken more research in the past. So it's a little bit how we upskill everyone and get them comfortable to safely use the tech.
And Mark, I guess you have a slightly different ask of your staff since you're consulting with customers on it.
So, I'm sorry. So in our ask, I mean, in recruiting talent for artificial intelligence, I think we have, well, we're also part of the Deutsche Telekom group, so we have a very large group of internal already developers are working there, and like BT, it attracts quite a few people in mainland Europe to work. But what we've also done is we are forming multiple pools, multiple areas where we're growing actually our artificial intelligence talent. So we're about 650 now. I think we're growing it to several thousand, but we have centers in India, in Germany, in Spain, and in Eastern Europe and Slovakia. And we continue to grow that. So one is we're digging into multiple pools, different areas. But what we also do is we partner with universities. And we bring in talent they're still students, they work with us, so they go through summer programs. And so we can bring them on board and get them interested into the various programs that we work on artificial intelligence, and that actually touches to the earlier conversation, quantum as well, but I think that's a long way away. But it's really getting them interested in the wide scope of what AI is today, and it's absolutely massive. And so and while salary is, I think salaries have gone up because there's more demand than there is supply right now. A lot of the people joining us, the salary is not part of the question often. It's what are the projects we're working on? What are we doing? and they join for the interest to be a part of basically the journey.
Got a maybe slightly related question from the audience. How do you see target operating models, people and process mostly, changing as a result of AI technologies such as process mining?
I mean, this is what I was referring to a little bit. We need to reimagine, like how our operating model is going to be in future. And that's what we actually do. That's what we're starting doing. We're starting looking at, like how will we serve our customers? What are we going to do? How does engineering work today? If we develop product applications, it takes some time. We already have some pilots running where we develop and where we engineer, where we code. Using Code Whisperer, for example, where we run trials, where it happens within days, and the testing, happen, and the documentation happens along. Sometimes it takes our engineers, weeks or days, weeks, months, in some instances, to do all the documentation, to have proper documentation along with the coding. It all happens, in the same moment. So that has it will be very disruptive to operating models overall, I believe. Like I said, I think it's not something for me, it's not only a discussion, should we do it, what are we going to do? It's more about, how do I be, how do I learn as much as possible about it? How do I engage with colleagues, with the industries, with customers around, so we actually maximize the outcome, the benefits of it. Because I think the benefits for Kathleen said already, for customer and customer experience, the benefits for our colleagues in process mining, if you see, where your process runs in a loop and goes back and forth, and you just fix it, a lot of our colleagues give us feedback and say, if you ask them, are things done easy here? It's a large corporation, as you can imagine what the answer is sometimes. With things like this, you fix stuff easier because you know exactly where the problem is.
Okay. And we talked about the difficulty in finding technical expertise. Are there any other parts of the AI supply chain, I guess, that are particularly difficult right now?
I think as you undertake any kind of journey, I think a lot of us and a lot of corporations right now are in the midst of various kinds of transformations. We've been talking for a long time about the digital transformation of our businesses. And a lot of folks are wondering, am I doing that right? Am I getting the efficiencies I expected as the consumer goes more digital? And now here's AI. I don't want to be the last one to be doing AI or bringing it into my business. And so how do you get started around that? Like I said, I think the big difference now is that we can take AI out of the labs, and I think it behooves business leaders, team leaders to try the technology, get to know it, understand a little bit about what it means to have a conversation with tech as opposed to having to write the code and execute it. What if the technology can do that for you? So I think it's helpful to think new ways about how we can engage with this technology and create a culture of innovation within our businesses to embrace that and give people some time and space to be able to get more comfortable, more familiar, and then there's going to be a lot of creativity about where it goes next.
Do you think that there is a risk that companies are overspending right now? And similarly, do you see the prospect of costs coming down over the next few years?
I think that companies right now have a lot of hype. There's been a number of questions today around what is the board pressuring you in terms of the use of this technology or desired magical outcomes. So I think that there is a lot of attention being spent on the space right now, but I think that's good. I think this is transformative. I think it is disruptive. And so now is the time to make some investment and figure out where we go. Do some planning, like I said, get that broader education. Within Experian, I'm leading efforts to train not just our technologists, but also the business leaders. This is going to be important as we make those cost trade-off decisions in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mark, Thomas, do you have any thoughts on
I think it's hard to say where costs will go. I mean, in some cases, costs may go down. I think in other cases, costs may stay the same or actually go up, but the return on investment may be higher.
Right.
And at the end of the day, this is what we're trying to achieve, is how can we get a higher return on investment, recognizing that costs for different reasons may go up. As in developing our various programs, we go back to the agile, the DevOps kind of approach. We want to get solutions out there, get pieces of the solution out there as fast as possible, test them, work them. Some will fail, some will work, but at least we don't wait to finish a monolithic piece and say, okay, was this fit for purpose? So it's really about moving quite fast, knowing that some will succeed a bit more than the others, or fail. But ultimately, what we were trying to drive is our return on investment. And if we get costs down as well,
I want to add on to that, because I think that the ways of working is hugely important. Because the thing is, this is a technology that's not mature. I think where it will get us, what the end state is ambiguous or unclear. And I mean, agile people have a field day, because that's exactly, how you tackle these type of problems. And that's how very similar to what Mark and Kathleen said, that this is how we tackling it as well. And actually looking in a very different way. If a good colleague of mine keeps saying, if it's good enough today, it's good enough to try, and then if you take it further, don't try, just do. I mean, there is no anarchy around, there has to be some governance and some guardrails. I heard the speaker before talk about the guardrails, hugely important. But I think this is all about, try, set it up in an environment where people can actually explore, can test, can iterate, because there's a continuous loop of learning. So we see already significant return on investment. If you look at our OpenReach arm, that builds networks, the fiber network, which some of you might have heard, we're putting in the ground in this beautiful country. We're saving tens of millions of pounds each year by using AI and actually equipping our engineers before they go to an appointment or actually dig something up. They have geographical information at their fingertips, that's pulled of all kind of different sources, from the internet. And it's a huge health and safety topic as well. So it keeps also our engineers on the road safe. If you look how we are actually in some of our B2B business, in how we engage with customers and how we make sure the solutions we bring to customers are addressing their problems, is AI driven. Or some of you, and some of you will, because EE is the biggest network, mobile network in the UK. You might have already have experienced with Amy, which we're testing out, which is our chatbot, which is supported with AI. Try it. You won't see the difference. It's quite rewarding.
Okay. Well, that was so interesting. Thank you so much. The clock is flashing at me now, but thank you very much, and I'll throw it back over to Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for joining this briefing on technology, innovation, automation in this uncertain time. We're coming right to the end now. So I just want to thank, of course, our sponsors, IBM. You can find out more about them, by the way, on the website as well, the event page. You can click on the tab and find out more about what IBM is doing. Of course, thank you to all of our speakers. Really fantastic insights, I think, in terms of the need to grapple with this technology, look it in the eyes, learn about it, think about embedding it with those guardrails in place, some of the risks and some of the upside as well, and what it could mean for ROI. Find ChatGPT-4, maybe get yourself a robotic arm or get it to build you a robotic arm. Thank you as well, of course, to our audience. You've all been engaged here and virtually as well for sending in the questions. We appreciate that. And now to networking and cocktails, something that, frankly, I think ChatGPT-4 and generative AI cannot replace in-person networking and cocktails. So thank you, go and enjoy, and we really appreciate you coming along and participating. Thank you.